All right, so now that we have reviewed zeros a little bit and we know what the word product means, let's actually dive into this property. There's one really important circumstance that occurs when you're talking about this property, and that is you must have a product of zero. Okay, so it only occurs when you have a product of zero. And what does it really? What do I really mean? Well, let's say we had. I'm going to kind of write it out like this. So what if you have A times B equals 0? Well, we're going to know a few things about A or B or B because it's equal to 0. So what the property is saying is that if this is true, then, so basically if A times B equals 0, then A equals 0 and or B equals 0. And let's do a really quick kind of thought experiment on this to make it really obvious. So for example, what if we said 3 times blank equals 0? Well, 3 times what equals 0? Let's call that x. Well, x would equal 0. 3 times 0 equals 0. Let's say 7 times what equals 0. We have a product of 0, while 7 times 0 equals 0. So if you get 0 by multiplying two things, one of those things must be 0. Okay, so let's take this back to quadratics. I'm going to draw a quadratic graph up here. Whoops. Just to kind of frame our reference in a minute. This is just a terrible sketch. Don't worry about that, though. That's just not important. Let's say something like this. Okay. Remember, this is my x, and that's my y. All right. So let's say that we have, this is the graph, and let's say we have, this is going to be the factored form of this graph. Let's call this x minus 2, and then x plus 3. Okay, so this is going to be our factored form. Well, we can use this property to find the zeros. So that's a really important thing. We can, you can use this property to find these zeros from an equation. Well, how do we do that? Let's see. Well, we're going to ask ourselves, we know we have this equation. What y value could I plug in to find these x values? Remember, we want to find the x's for our zeros. Well, what y value did we review in this one? We always had what y value for every single zero. We always had the y value of 0. Okay, so we're going to go apply that to this, and we're going to say, oh, well then y must equal 0. So what if we rewrote this? So now we have 0 equals x minus 2 times x plus 3. Okay, we're almost there. Now we're going to apply this property. Well, if a times b equals 0, this would be my big A, right? This would be my B. Two things are multiplying together to equal 0. One or both of them must be 0. So this must be 0. So x minus 2 must be equal to 0. Well, we can solve this, right? One step, plus 2, plus 2. X equals 2. Boom. Okay, but b could be 0 as well, so we got to do the same thing. So 0 could also equal x plus 3. Well, that's an easy one-step equation. So x will be negative 3. So these are your zeros. And we can even see on this, I didn't write where it is, but there's my 0 of 2, and here's my 0 of negative 3. So it fit. Okay, we're going to do a quicker example in the next video just to kind of throw this together. And it'll be a little bit easier if you see me just go through an example or two all the way through.